House resumes and debate continues. Yes, Senator Vidal. Victor, sorry, you may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to give my contribution for the supplementary appropriation for the financial year 2022-2023. It is to me it's an honor to speak after Honorable Minister for Agriculture, Honorable Roland, because I wanted to be as short as possible today. And all that was for you, but I had to get rid of it because there's no comeback. There's no comeback. However, there's one thing particularly I would like to bring up to your attention. There was this land in Southern York that was supposed to be distributed to different young farmers in Salisbury. I would like one time for you to give an update on that, please, because the young farmers in Salisbury have been doing great. Just recently, we had 2 young farmers in Salisbury who received awards. One, Mr. Kevin Vidal, young man in his 20s who received the award for Dominica Youth in Sustainable Agriculture, and Mr. Kevin Vidal, who won US $10,000 grant towards his farming business with the GGGI Caribbean Incubator Program. So if these farmers are already doing so great, imagine the impact they would have when this land is distributed to them, because one of them name is actually down as a recipient for this piece of land. Only thing I have to say to you is continue working for the agriculture industry. You've been doing good. Your name is being called on the streets. You are not just of word, you have action. The agricultural industry needed you, especially on the Salisbury part, because I can say I have had communication with you regarding certain farmers, and the way you reply, the way you always check up, I have to commend you for that. No, and I appreciate you for that. So continue working with us as we continue to grow the agricultural industry in Salisbury and Dominica by extension, because at the end of the day, one of our basic needs is food. Moving on. I'm just going to say a few things on the Ministry of Tourism, nothing much, because I feel we all want to get this over with today so we could go on with our Christmas celebrations and planning. So I wish Honorable Minister of Tourism, Honorable Charles, was here, because I wanted to give her my support and my shoulder as she mourned the loss of 2 key individuals in the tourism industry in Dominica, the owners of Kulibi Ridge. The untimely, uncalled passing of them, their murder, was a shock to the nation, and not just the nation, but we had a global shock. I feel like this is a great burden on our industry, to having worked so long, for so many years, to build something you love and having it taken away from you in less than a year to see. So I would like to reassure that I mourn with her, I mourn with the people of Soufriere, and I mourn with the tourism industry. After I heard her statements after the death, the news came out, I could hear the pain in her voice. I heard some people call the radio and questioning the pain that was uncalled for. You could hear it. Even when she spoke about them today, I could hear the pain in her voice. I was basically saying, please don't cry, please don't cry. Another thing I was looking forward to hearing was the Honorable Prime Minister also give a statement on the death, which I did not hear publicly. He maybe gave us support at the back. I cannot say he did not. I'm not there in closed chambers. I can only speak on what I'm listening to publicly. I did not hear that, so I'm going to tell her I publicly mourn with her. Let us use the passing of these individuals as an example and a lesson. I see a lot of figures being spent on due diligence. Let's do a better job at due diligence when it comes to our country, especially our tourism industry. I do hope that we do something to honor Mr. Daniel and his partner, whether it be justice, whether it be a monument, whether it be something where we to ensure that the Kulibi Ridge continue, become functional once again in the future. And we're not doing it just for doing its sake. We're doing it for the love of Dominica, the love of its people, for the love of tourism, and for the love of the exact due diligence. That's all.
Yes, Honorable Laville, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate that. And good afternoon to all. And I must say, from hearing the remarks from Honorable Laurie Victor, that is the absolute best version I have heard. And if you keep this up, you will do well. All right, so congrats on your delivery. Mr. Speaker, I rise to just comment briefly on a few things because, you know, you're a man of experience, Mr. Speaker, so you would have enjoyed maybe at some point in your life a 5-course meal. And from the delivery right before lunch, I think Honorable Roland Roy gave us, you know, the 5-course meal, or at least 4.5 at least. So hence the reason why after lunch, when you're really supposed to have digestion at this point, and we come well ready, you know, on the other side, well, sleeping for some, yeah, like you said, that we really even have to withdraw our planned remarks because we got all the answers to our questions. But so I'm standing really just to provide clarification on a few things that were said earlier, all right? And as it relates to Salisbury, Monrachet, Coolibistry, and so on, I don't think it's fair for us to use a brush, tinted brush, and appear to dip it in red paint and paint the country. That's not how this administration leads. That's not how we govern. We govern with absolute equity, and the track record has shown that for a long time, quite a long time. This Labour Party-led administration is about all. It's about elevating the small man and the challenged women and getting one from one tier to another. Elevation, that's what we're about. And we don't discriminate in terms of the people that we help, we support, we facilitate. And when we create a Dominican enabling environment, it's for all and not for some. All shall eat. That's what we're about. And the numbers are there to show that. And if we go to the housing recovery program, for example, when it was said that not much has been done in the area of housing for this constituency, this is not quite true because the records would show that from 2019, we'd have spent in excess of $1.3 million for housing assistance in this constituency. And I think we have some other factors at play that we ought to consider. And maybe, you know, opposition leader and power rep, you have an opportunity to change the tides. Because what we had before was a situation where there would be programs, and there was no belief by the power rep in the programs that were there for all Dominicans to enjoy. And the housing recovery program, it was there for all, and we had over 4,000 applicants. And when you have in a parliamentary representative or in a party, an opposition party, there's no belief, and you tint everything in an unbecoming manner, and then your supporters actually believe that they will not benefit, and they get that feeling that they will stand no chance if they apply, then you will find the chances of them benefiting might be lower. And I say this to say because with over 4,000 applicants, we have only 32 people applying from your entire constituency, and there would have been criteria published, and 4 of which would have been pre-selected. I'm understanding 1 home is under construction. So these figures are low for a constituency like this. You would have expected that there would be much more interest. So I'm saying this to say that when we say that Salisbury is not benefiting and so on, you have an opportunity right now to change the environment, and that is what I think would be required, and the fortunes of your people would surely change. Also, too, when we speak about benefits, we look at the social programs. If we were to zoom in particularly to the 65 and over pension program that we have in the Salisbury constituency, we have 63 people from Montrachet and 110 from Salisbury benefiting from that program, and that is significant. And it would have been lower when it was 70, but when the government sought to reduce that age, would have captured a larger amount of people from your constituency. And when we add that up and considering that we increased recently the amount by 5%, that is significant, and that changes the fortunes of many of your constituents. So when the government institutes programs and policy measures and so on, it's not with a tinted brush. It's in the spirit and in consideration of all, and certainly not for some. It's one Dominica. So these are some of the things that you could have thanked the government for. I saw you started thanking, but there's much more. And again, I can go on and on, but these really are just a few. So in essence, if we remove all the sensationalization in some of our presentations and we look closely into the crux of the matter today, all we're here today to do at this juncture is to approve the supplementary estimates. And what is presented to us here is really just something we are familiar with in our own home economics, in our households. We all do budgeting, all right? And the government has a mechanism, a facility in which we can access more financing. And generally, there are 3 areas or opportunities or categories, may I say, that these line items fall under. And one would be to respond to urgent situations, and budget adjustments as number 2, and finally, enhancing efficiencies. And when I look closely, Mr. Speaker, through this submission, each line item, each and every one would fall under one of these categories, and that is fundamentally clear, all right? And if we look further at the numbers, if we look at the final page in terms of the totals and how they are portioned, we would see of that 349 million amount, Mr. Speaker, 14% of that would have been grant, 79% local funding, and 7% loan. So we can look at numbers in different ways, but it suggests to me that with 79% local financing, it tells me, and I know Honorable Darren Pinard presented the entire economic landscape that we exist in, that we live in right now, the reality. And globally, things are hard. And to be able to raise revenue, it is positive. It tells a story about us in Dominica, that notwithstanding the global challenges, the regional challenges, and our own domestic challenges, we are still able to raise revenue. And that is positive, and it's something that we should celebrate. And it is not by accident. It is 20 odd years, 23 years of absolute prudence, of accountability, of transparency, of incorporating and implementing measures, Mr. Speaker, that strengthens our economy and our general financial sector, Mr. Speaker. And that is what this government has been about. And it has not been easy. We have never claimed that it would be easy. And we have seen the setbacks that we've had, particularly with the natural disasters that we have faced. But we are doing our best, and I think the people are aware of that. In all earnest, they can see that we are in fact doing our best, and we are open, honest, transparent, and accountable with their money. And if we go into, deep detail of that, you would see even, for example, in our own in healthcare, Mr. Speaker, when I look at the figures, most of it really would be from grants. Okay, so when we look at that 340 plus million, we have to make sense of this and analyze it very closely. Say, for example, the rehabilitation of Reginald Amo Hospital, that would have been by way of a grant from Pan American Health Organization in the amount of $418,000 grants. And we have four line items, and three of those are by way of grants. COVID-19 vaccine delivery support program. We know the challenges on our health sector during that period. You know the strain. And we had to access and source additional resources to be able to fight the COVID pandemic during that time period. And thanks again to the support of UNICEF in that time period to assist with the delivery of COVID-19 vaccines. One area of all of them where we would have access to local financing would really have been for public healthcare wages, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing that we are not using grants to pay our bills, that we are not using grants to pay public officers, that we will be able to generate that revenue on our own. That shows a level of sustainability and maturity in our economy, and we ought to be proud of that. And in that time period, it can easily be justified. The fight for COVID required a lot. The many frontline workers, not only in health, in national security, and so many other areas. They had to work longer hours, many of our workers or officers. And we ought to compensate people fairly, and that is what this government is about. We can't expect them to work overtime and not be paid. And it may be asked, wasn't that projected? We really did not know how many man and woman hours would have been required to fight COVID-19. We had to hire more people. We ran hospitals from Portsmouth, makeshift hospitals, and get new staff, additional doctors. And many of them were retained, as a matter of fact, in our healthcare system, even after we shut down these makeshift facilities. So I think the justification is absolutely clear as it relates to the spending in various areas. I know much was said about NEP, but I will just correlate that to health right now. In the Caribbean, we are facing this challenge with dengue in many of the islands, and we were one of the last, and we knew it would have come to our shores. Because of our porous borders, the way in which the modalities of travel and shipment and so on, we expected it. All right? And mosquitoes do fly, Mr. Speaker. So we expected it. And NEP, they play a vital role in the fight of this, to fight these vectors, and to ensure that the areas and the environment is kept clean and tidy. And not only that, even the biting midges as well. While we are not aware at this time, based on the research and the science, of any pathogens that they carry at this point, but notwithstanding, it's a nuisance in society. And we are finding that they replicate generally in decaying, where in environments with decaying material. And this is where NEP comes in, to keep particularly the beautification teams, to keep the roadsides clean, to keep the environment clean, the drains free and flowing with water. So they play a key role not only in beautification, but by extension, we maybe even have to rename that team, because they're playing a critical role in environmental health for us. And we ought to be grateful for the tremendous role that they're playing right now. In terms of the airport, that's one of the largest line items that I see here, but the justification is clear. And if we were to, recently I flew over the airport site, and I almost thought this was 3 years of development. So if we have a project, we're implementing work, and we are really, in fact, ahead of schedule, then that suggests to me that the uptick in terms of financing for the project would also match the rate of implementation, hence the need for us to have supplementary appropriations for this project. So the justification is there, justification is clear. for this. So, Mr. Speaker, the Layu Road is another one where we see, I think it was $19 million that would have been, it's $19 million. This one, again, how you watch figures and how do you make sense of the figures presented to you. This is not a new loan that was contracted. It was contracted a while back. And it's just merely at what point in which the contractor submits his payment claims outside of the budgeted period in that case, and then the figure appears. That's all it is. It's not a new loan. This project would have been conceptualized way back. I remember working in public works a few years back, not even as minister, as an engineer, and this project was being negotiated. So it's not new. All right, so the public ought not to be concerned by this. There ought to be no sensationalism about the figures that are presented. They're all justified and can easily fall into one of the three categories: to respond to urgencies, to ensure their security, which is really first and foremost for most of them, and to adjust where necessary, and to enhance efficiencies to continue to serve. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity, and I could not miss the opportunity also, in the spirit of Christmas, to wish my constituents a blessed and joyous Christmas, a prosperous New Year, and also to the wonderful people and staff of the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and Social Services, and to thank my colleagues who have been absolutely diligent and committed throughout the year in terms of leading and managing the affairs of our blessed nation. I ask people to continue to be patient in these challenging times and be hopeful about the prospects and the opportunities that are presented to us. Continue to put your faith in your government. We're there for you. We're working on your behalf. Thank you. May God bless all of you.
Yes, Senator Paris, you may proceed.
Good afternoon. Mr. Speaker, just before I begin, how much time do we have? How much time do I have?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Wonderful, Mr. Speaker. I should be done within that time. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make some brief contributions on the supplementary estimates currently before the House for approval. Mr. Speaker, I wish I could come here and do a resounding round of applause, say good job to everybody, and thank you. And, you know, we could sing Kumbaya and go home, right? But Mr. Speaker, that wouldn't be very honest of me. And I think we have enough members of the other side, maybe some of them still at lunch, but enough members on the other side to do a lot of the singing and dancing and clapping and so. So I'll move on to doing, you know, some of the people's business. If I did that, Mr. Speaker, I would be robbing a large majority of people in Dominica of having their views represented at what many consider to be, I heard somebody mention it this morning, the highest court in the land. Ordinary people, Mr. Speaker, ordinary people that don't get the chance to probably even call the radio, right? To have their views represented here. Mr. Speaker, and you know our relationship, I like to ask for your help, so I pray that you will indulge me for a little bit. Question, who is supposed to guard the guard, Mr. Speaker? Who is supposed to guard the guard? Mr. Speaker, in February 7th of this year, when this new session of Parliament commenced, one of the first things we dealt with was the supplementary estimates, right? As part of my introductory remarks, or part of my remarks, I remember saying that, you know, I thought it was too late to be bringing these supplementary appropriations to the House, and we should have dealt with that before. And I remember a few of my friends on the other side telling me, oh, there was a bit of heckling. Yeah, that's okay, we can bring it, you know, it's okay. It's not, one of my friends don't like when I say overspent. They like to say unforeseen expenditure, right? You say, just say, sorry. Before you get there, hold on. But Mr. Speaker, if you will indulge me, the Finance Administration Act, Section 12(5) states that, and I quote, where any advances is made from the contingencies fund under the provisions of this section, a supplementary estimate of the sum required for the service which that advance was made, for which it was made, shall be laid before the House of Assembly as soon as possible. But in any event, not later than 6 months before the date which a contingencies fund warrant was issued, and shall be included in a supplementary appropriation bill for appropriation. Mr. Speaker, the reason I'm raising this issue is that according to the audit report for that period, those of you who have not read it, you can look at what I'm saying, and this is a public document. Anybody can get it online. Page 62, section 2.21, which is now a public document, like I mentioned. They found that all of the contingency fund warrants were not laid in Parliament within the stipulated 6-month period required by law. So I ask you again, Mr. Speaker, who is supposed to guard the guard? Who is supposed to hold this administration accountable for simply doing what's right? Just do the right thing. We understand it's an emergency, we understand it's unforeseen, but we can do it right. Right? Who is supposed to do that? Mr. Speaker, maybe you can help me, because according to the audit report, for the same period, it goes further, stating that of all of the contingency fund warrants that were issued, 6 of them were brought after the close of the financial year. 2 of them on June 30th, and 4 of them in July of 2022. Financial year closes on June 30th. Now, Mr. Speaker, we're not going to go down into the nitty-gritty details because I only have half an hour and I chewing through it. The reason I'm raising this with you, Mr. Speaker, is because today we are looking at another 486 contingency fund warrants that have been issued for the period ending June 30th, 2023. Now, Mr. Speaker, the reasonable assumption is that, wow, all of those would have had to be issued within a 6-month period prior to today's date. Let me go further. It would mean that all of these 486 warrants would have had to be issued between June 14th and June 30th of 2023. That is the reasonable assumption that we should be making if we are expecting and anticipating that we are operating within the rule of law. And Mr. Speaker, somebody can stand up over there and say, absolutely, that is true. But I don't have that confidence, Mr. Speaker. I'm likely to believe that we are just continuing the same practices. And like the member, the senator on the other side mentioned, you know, it's better to say sorry than to ask for permission. All right? Mr. Speaker, for the same period, there was an issue with unpaid checks. You can find that in the audit report, page 55. A sum totaling almost more than half of what we had approved for supplementary estimates. We had approved it. A sum, almost more than half of that, was recorded in unpaid checks. These unpaid checks were owed to firms and merchants, local businesses, individuals, CBI merchants, etc. Mr. Speaker, a sum of over $121 million in unpaid checks at the close of the period in June 30th of 2022. So, Mr. Speaker, while we are approving monies for overspent, no, the member for Granby don't like when I say overspent. He like me to say unforeseen. While we are approving monies for things that we didn't see coming, and obviously we can find all the justifications for that. I don't think that is much of an issue. For facilitation of government business, and when people are taking advances for travel here, there, and everywhere, I assume on government business, I will only assume the best things of my colleagues. And while foreigners in Dominica, working in Dominica, are able to send away $214 million a year, there are people who have worked in Dominica in the employ of the government and are struggling to get paid. They are struggling to get paid, Mr. Speaker, while they're living in a country where it already seems difficult to get work as a local business person or as an entrepreneur. It seems a little difficult. But even when they find a little work, even when they do find a little work in the employ of the government, they have a difficulty getting paid. And you have people boasting that foreigners sending away so much money so you have work here, but you can't get paid and you work. Ordinary people, Mr. Speaker, offering themselves to participate in an honest day's work in the hope of getting an honest day's pay. And they can't get it. They have difficulty getting it. Everybody here who has done business understands cash flow. So no matter how much you owe me, if you don't pay me, I still under the water because I don't have any cash flow. That is a problem. And Mr. Speaker, we have to do better because even while the ECCB is reporting that Dominica has an expanding economy and we're growing, they're still reporting, the same ECCB is reporting that we have a problem with debt collection and tax collection. And you know why, Mr. Speaker? It's because of the same issue. Yes, we have money, but it's not in the hands of the people. That's why they can't pay their debt. Can't service their loans. Can't collect no taxes from them. They don't have it. Because of issues like that. Unpaid checks. Millions of dollars. We have to do better, Mr. Speaker. We have to put our people back to work. And when they make themselves available for work, we must pay them and pay them on time. To ensure their survival, to ensure their upward mobility, to ensure their success in their own country. The resources of Dominica have to benefit Dominicans. They have to see it in real time. It must not be a dream that we must be waiting for. I looking so nice? I bid. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the international airport. On the issue of the international airport. No, but you look good too, Honorable. I find, I just trying to follow you, that's all. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the international airport. On the issue of the international airport. Mr. Speaker, we have some unanswered questions about the international airport, and I suspect that Honorable Blackmore wants to answer them for me. So may I direct the question to him?
You can direct it to him through me.
You. So Mr. Speaker, let's just keep talking and let's just ignore all this side talk that's going on there. Mr. Speaker, people are worried, and I will tell you why people are worried about the international airport and the construction of the international airport. Because, Mr. Speaker, we don't understand what's happening. We don't understand the financing arrangement because we've heard about an upfront or a front-loading arrangement that is supposed to be happening in relation to the construction of the international airport. And Mr. Speaker, one of the reasons that we're worried is because we have been seeing our government spending hundreds of millions of dollars upfront. Come in, wait. So, Mr. Speaker, the question is, has the front-loading arrangement changed? Because what is happening is, it looks as if we're paying for the construction of the international airport before, during, and it looks as if we will be expected to pay after the construction of the international airport. So that is what we want cleared up. Because, Mr. Speaker, in recent times, the government, through the Ministry of Finance, has been able to acquire some very favorable terms, outstanding terms from friendly governments overseas. But it seems as though we cannot offer those same or similar terms to ourselves with what is supposed to be our own money. It would be lovely if we had gotten a break on our own money and maybe had to start paying back from the front-loading arrangement 8 years down the line. But we're paying now. So what is this front-loading arrangement and how are we benefiting from it? Silence. Mr. Speaker, the confusion continues, and I hope you can help me. Because more than just not understanding the arrangement, we're not understanding the numbers. Some things are off, and a simple question like Senator Blackmore mentioned a while ago, if somebody can just say, sorry, my bad, that was a mistake. You know, maybe we can clear that up. But Mr. Speaker, the budgeted figure for the international airport 2022-2023 was $65 million. The revised figure for this particular line item in this year's budget, a few months ago, was $216.5 million. That is what we expected to pay. An increase of over $151 million was approved previous budget cycle. Now, Mr. Speaker, we are hearing in these supplementary estimates, we're claiming that the revised estimated figures were wrong, and that the actual expenditure is $119 million. That's $32 million less than what we projected our spend would be. So now, Mr. Speaker, the question becomes, what did we plan to spend on that we are no longer going to spend on, that caused us to overshoot our estimation, or revised estimation, by $32 million? Did we get a discount somewhere? Or maybe we canceled some currency, some contingency fund warrants? Why were we, so Mr. Speaker, you understand, with these fluctuations, there now becomes an issue of trust. How do we trust the numbers? How do we trust the numbers? Because if we had issued those contingency fund warrants only a few months ago, obviously something would have popped up and said, hey guys, you're overshooting and you're overestimating the budgeted figures. We just approved the budget in July. That's a few months ago. The contingency fund warrants would have told us, hey, fix that up. So what's the story? Mr. Speaker, in the modern resilient housing development, we have a similar situation. What was reported just a few months ago in July, we're now seeing 22 contingency fund warrants for it in December with a massive reduction. How do we explain that? What's the story here? Did we build less houses? Are we getting discounts on material? Or what, of these 22 contingency fund warrants, how many of them have been cancelled? Maybe just 5 months ago. Or is it just another reflection of our poor internal control system? Is that what is bugging us? Is that where we're finding the mishap? My pal rep, the member from Margaret, mentioned this morning that people must do their work. People have to do their work in the government. I recall it. How much people must do their work? Right? So maybe it's a situation of internal controls. And look, my two pal reps over there, maybe they want to apologize for the misunderstanding and, they just want to clear that up. Mrs. Speaker, I was disappointed that the Minister of Energy spoke before me because I had some questions on the geothermal that I really wanted him to address. He's a very competent individual and he's the one that has been in this thing for the longest time. So I wanted him to answer it for me. And he still has an opportunity because, Mr. Speaker, we're now hundreds of millions of dollars in. We're all in now. We are all our chips, they are on the table, and we full in 100% with geothermal. With what many would consider to be a transformative effort, and an absolute game changer for Dominica. Not just many, Mr. Speaker, me too. I'm on board with geothermal as well. But Mr. Speaker, now, thank you. But we still have some questions. Because now, after we've dumped all of this money in, we're hearing that we're signing. After we have invested all of this money, that works? Cool. Good. No, but we're working together. After we have invested hundreds of millions of dollars, now we have we can't trust the numbers, so we'll that's to be seen. Mr. Speaker, my question is, now that we're hearing about a contract that we have signed for the development, right? And maybe it's a good idea, Mr. Speaker. That doesn't prevent the questions. What happens now with our investment? What happens now with the expectation that Dominicans have had for years, with the hope that we are going to have a massive reduction in the cost of energy? Because, Mr. Speaker, for you to develop anything, you need energy. We have been promised for years that the cost of energy is going to drop significantly with the introduction of geothermal. But now we are introducing a middleman. How do we know? What do we do with that hope? Next week we'll talk about that. Okay. Minister of Energy say we'll deal with it next week. But Mr. Speaker, we have questions because this is something that we're all anticipating. And now we're...
So, Senator, if the minister have already presented, are you saying that he should respond to you? Because you're asking the question in a literal sense. So, after you finish,
well, Mr. Speaker, the minister said two things, right? And then I'll finish with the questions. If you know me well, we have plenty. He said two things. He said that there's another time that he's going to talk about geothermal. And maybe, asking these questions now, he will make it a priority to address them in his good time. Okay. Now the minister can choose. The minister can choose to answer me now if he wants, but also the minister can choose to put it in a later address that he wants to deliberate on. Now, Mr. Speaker, what do we do with this? Because middlemen, they always take their profit first. Middlemen, they always take their profit first. They always take their profit first, Mr. Speaker. So, are the proceeds going to have to jump through a couple hoops before it can get back to the hands of the Dominican people? After we have invested hundreds of millions of dollars. What do the Dominican people do with that? Now, Mr. Speaker, after 25 years, what will be the operational cost of the geothermal plant? Will we be in a position to take over a plant where a lot of the operational systems would be now approaching the peak of their life expectancy, 25 years? And some of them are going to need to change. Are we going to be in a position? Do we understand what that is, and are we capable of doing it? Are we planning to do that at the time? Or are we going to be taking on something that at that point we might have to be reinventing? So, Minister, good questions for you. You can pay attention to them. Well, you know, some of us paid attention in school. Mr. Speaker, a lot was said about the NEP workers. And it's a group of people I really admire. But, Mr. Speaker, we keep hearing cries from the NEP individuals. And we know, we understand that they're not just sanitation engineers. Not just people that clean it. We understand the NEP is bigger than that. But the sanitation engineers and a few others, we're hearing them cry with things about not getting paid on time, not having job security, not having contracts, not having access to financing because of the purgatory that they now reside in. Yeah, well, you know, I hang around them a lot. Mr. Speaker, so more than just all of the lovely flowery things that we've said about the NEP workers and the parties that we want to give, I hear somebody have a container of ham going to give NEP workers, and ham and turkey. Some of them Adventists. Mr. Speaker, more than that, I think the value system that we put on our NEP workers needs to improve. Because in some sectors, you would agree that they are looked at
10 more
as
minutes.
the lesser employees.
10 more minutes.
They're looked at as the lesser employees. And Mr. Speaker, I think that they need some job security too. Some level of security that puts them in a position to be able to pay their bills on time, because we are now paying them on time. To be able to have a job letter or contract That allows them to go to the credit union. And maybe they can put a little piece on the house or finish the downstairs and probably, put something together to send son to university or probably help with the funeral arrangements for Nene. Because they have a job letter, like every other government employee, because they are no lesser value than other government employees. They have a pension, a hope of a pension coming in, and so on and so forth. Mr. Speaker, I think we need to elevate them and put them in a position where they can feel secure, like the rest of us. Mr. Speaker, finally, um, I really wanted to come here to talk about CBI. It's something that I really love. I think many would believe it is the only thing keeping us afloat and has kept us afloat for a very long time. Mr. Speaker, we're not dealing with that today. We're postponing it. Now, Mr. Speaker, we have to be careful with postponing things that we find so very important. Because if we continue to ignore the signs, well, we don't know what price we'll pay for that. I find it fitting to remind us, Mr. Speaker, that every time warnings and recommendations of this magnitude were ignored in the past, particularly in the Bible, the people of God and their leaders paid a very heavy price for it. I hope for all of our sakes, it is not too late for us to heed all of the warnings and the recommendations that we've gotten. And for us to turn this country around in a very secure and sustainable way, where it will once again start to benefit and serve every one of us who live and work on this beautiful island. Mr. Speaker, parliamentary colleagues, thank you for your time.
Yes, Honorable Grant, recognize you may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to give my full support to the supplementary estimates before us today. But before I dealt in my very short presentation, I would just like to correct something that Senator Parris said. And there's a difference between contingency fund warrants and variement warrants. No, just hold on, Senson, we're not at the credit union, hold on. Contingency fund warrants are unforeseen. The figure that you quoted, over 400, is the movement of money between ministries and between budget items. There's a difference. So it wasn't over 400 unforeseen. I don't know if you understand, and we got on that. You want to get your notes? Should I sit down, get your notes? There's a difference. Contingency fund and variement warrants, there's a difference. Variement.
You may proceed. You wanted to on a point of order. Yes, but I don't think. But I don't think. I don't think I'll ask you to take your seat. I don't think that is necessary. Just continue your presentation.
No, well, Mr. Speaker, it's unfair. It's unfair that
No,
Senator
no.
Parris said that we had over 400
No. I would like,
unforeseen.
Honorable Minister, unless you are asking him a question, I would prefer you just do your presentation. Yeah. Yeah, Senator Parris, just take your seat and allow the minister to present. Because we don't want the debate to be back and forth. No. It's not. This is the wrong approach.
But
Let's proceed.
As he said, Mr. Speaker, the audit report for the year ending 2022 is a public document, and I believe that the public should go and take a look at it because CFW is different. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Public Works, Public Utilities, and the Digital Economy, we only had one large ticket item in this year's supplementary estimates, and that is for the Lyo Road project, Mr. Speaker, and I think that the country can rest assured that this investment is bearing fruit. The farmers in that area, the business owners in that area, the residents in that area are all pleased, Mr. Speaker. But also on the weekend, Mr. Speaker, it's now a hotspot for liming because of the road, and I think Honorable Lloyd is pleased with the level of traffic that is now in the Lyo area. Mr. Speaker, the international airport, my neighbor in Palrep, the Honorable Charles, Mr. Speaker, I would just like to inform Mr. Charles that as parliamentary representative for Wesley constituency, I have a regular meeting with the developers and contractors. So we meet on a monthly basis and I get updates. So I'm fully in tune to what is going on within the constituency. Mr. Speaker, we have situations, and you made note that a lot of people have not gotten paid, Mr. Speaker. And I would just like to clarify that. There are a number of situations, as we know, negotiations are private. And we have situations, just to give a rough example, you have situations where persons die interstate or without a will. And you have 7 and 8 siblings. So you can imagine the contention that is brewing between these individuals. And unless the relevant document is presented to the Treasury cannot pay out. So unless these documents are presented to the Treasury, so I can say the government is owing me and I'm not submitting anything to the Treasury, Mr. Speaker. And that is this, a lot of these situations that happen, and we can attest to that. We had one situation where we had about 4 different families on over 22,000 square feet. The government had to step in and build homes for these 4 different families. And the Wesley people have benefited and are continuing to benefit significantly, Mr. Speaker. As we speak now, we have over 100 persons employed from the Wesley Woodford Hill area. The security for the international airport site, that is being manned by a local firm from the village of Woodford Hill, Mr. Speaker. We have just over 35 persons working security on the site. It's a 24-hour job, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have done so in the past on numerous occasions, but I have to express my profound gratitude and thanks to the people of Wesley, Woodford Hill, and of course Palm Tree for their support, their understanding during this time, Mr. Speaker. We had an issue of traffic running through the village. We listened to the concerns of the people and we diverted that traffic. So there's a reduce in terms of the number of trucks who are now traversing the community of Wesley. We are aware that there are potholes, Mr. Speaker. As the parliamentary representative and also Minister for Public Works, we have gone up there, we have done the site visits, and we are doing some work. But as you can imagine, Mr. Speaker, the trucks continue to cause damage to the road. But this House can be rest assured that the Ministry of Public Works and the parliamentary representative will be repairing the road and continue to make the necessary adjustments. So I thank not only the people of Wesley, Mr. Speaker, but the citizens who traverse the Wesley, Woodford Hill, and Calibishi area where they are damaged to the road, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the member for Margot indicated that the WASCO is going through challenges, Mr. Speaker. And as the minister responsible for the WASCO, I need to clarify a few things. In the last maybe 5 years, the WASCO spent in excess of $50 million capital expenditure. Wow. It is very expensive, Mr. Speaker, to go and build and construct an intake. Every time there's a natural disaster, we suffer significant damage at some of these intakes. And Mr. Speaker, at this time, I would like to commend the staff, the men and women of the WASCO, Mr. Speaker, because they bring pipe-borne water to our homes. And sometimes we don't know, but they are out in the late in the night, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, ensuring that we have pipe-borne water, Mr. Speaker, and they should be commended for that. Yeah. The member, I just want to also assure the member that we have pipes in the WASCO and they do an excellent job at laying those pipes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the member for Salisbury, I assume that we were good friends because when she calls me, I respond. When she visits my offices, we sit down and we have nice conversations. If she had an issue, if she has an issue, I would just like to assist the Minister for Agriculture, Honorable Roy, because during the passage of Philip, we did a lot of work in Salisbury. We mobilized a lot of contractors. The bills keep coming in for the Salisbury constituency for work that we have done in the Makushu area, Salisbury next to the church, the Grand Riviera area, where we had a situation, Kuli Bistri. So, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Public Works, along with the Ministry of Agriculture, are in the Salisbury constituency doing work, and the people should not be misled. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, you're a PR, that's fine. Okay, let's go. Mr. Speaker, in wrapping up, Mr. Speaker, I give my full support because all the monies that we spend in the area of national security, housing, pension, education, and the NEP, we tend to benefit in the Wesley constituency from this, Mr. Speaker, and I give my full support to the Minister of Finance and the supplementary estimate. Mr. Speaker, in closing, the member for Marigot indicated that he wanted a speed bump on the West Flat, Mr. Speaker, and though there's already a speed bump, Mr. Speaker, an unofficial speed bump on the West Flat. And if he was familiar with his constituency, he would be aware of this. What I would like to ask the member is whether he was part of the team who created that speed bump sometime in 2019, Mr. Speaker. Yes. So he has a speed bump on the West Flat. I don't know if Senator Paris provided, project managing supervision for that project, Mr. Speaker. No. Mrs. Anderson Reed provided the funds for that project, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I give my full support to the budgetary estimates, Mr. Speaker, and I thank you.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes, Honorable Blackmore.
I rise to give a very brief intervention in total support of the supplementary appropriation bill before us, Honorable Speaker, in the tune of $349,702,000 plus. But, Mr. Speaker, before I proceed to referencing the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs, and with your permission, Mr. Speaker, I would like to talk briefly about the new grammar school. And I listened to Dr. Henderson spoke brilliantly and gave a lecture on our advancement we have made thus far in our geothermal undertaking. If I'm spared, Mr. Speaker, for the next sitting of this Honorable House, I'll be moving a motion to modernize and the mood of dress for parliamentarians consistent with the contemporary world of 2023. And I say that, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we have the AD, we have one of the Henderson there, that it is the cultural and sociological realities that determine laws, not the other way around. And it is clear, therefore, that the rules governing the mode of dress of parliamentarians are antiquated. And to say further, that would require the utmost discretion and appreciation of the Speaker. And to say further, Mr. Speaker, I was inclined this morning to have stood, but of course, to ask for some clarification in reference to the rules governing the mode of dress in Parliament, because my understanding from what I've read, that the rules are in fact neutral insofar as it relates to the attire of female parliamentarians. And I wanted to ask further, I love the national wear. I love to see our ladies in particular dressed in what deviance. It defines us as a people.
and it's a spectacle during the independence celebration. But think of it, if our female parliamentarians 4 or 5 times a year were to use what we do to come to Parliament. Or if Honorable Vince Henderson and others and the Prime Minister and the Attorney General and all the other members, Dr. Mark, were to come to Parliament with a white shirt and red tie and a red sash, which is nice in Parliament. So I'm not saying that we have to discern as to what is contemporary and what is antiquated. Mr. Speaker, having said that, I want to put into context, with your permission, what is before this honorable House. And firstly, I want to highly commend the Minister for Finance, who's getting better and better with his presentation. To the extent to which, it's a fact, to the extent to which we only spoke because we had to speak. But everything was thoroughly explained. Every line item was thoroughly explained. And I want to also commend not only the Minister for Finance, but his competent staff, the Financial Secretary, and the other technical support that he gets. Mr. Speaker, fundamental to that presentation before this honorable House, which demonstrates something that is critical, especially coming from Erica, Hurricane Maria, and COVID-19, is the fiscal and financial resilience of this country. Because we are asking for the approval before this honorable House in excess of $349 million. 79% of what we are asking for was spent from our own local circumstances, our own finances. 14% grant, 7% loan. This is a government, Mr. Speaker, under the leadership of Reverend Scarrett, that has demonstrated its competence in managing the finances of this country and taking this beautiful country to the next level, Mr. Speaker. And in that regard, Mr. Speaker, I want to make reference to the $4 million, $143,246.68 that was allocated to the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs. And I want to start with the smaller figure, of $1 million plus that was spent to bring immediate relief to the people in the southeastern part of this country. This section of this country was devastated by heavy rains last September. And the next day, because of the financial and fiscal resilience of this country and the leadership of this country, boats and vehicles were going to Grand Fond, Castlebus, and Fonse, that was the place? Petit Souffre and Goudou, Saint-Sauvé, to bring supplies for the people of this country. That is what the Labour Party is all about, Mr. Speaker. And we have been able, coming from Hurricane David, I want to go back to Hurricane David, because most of the people inside this honorable House, okay, with the exception of yours truly, the AG, Dr. Mark, either were not conceived or were taking Bobo. And I refer to one of them who could have been around 6-7 years then taking Bobo. Still, Mr. Speaker. And then bottle. Understand? And sleeping in Macintosh. In those days, Macintosh, Mr. Speaker. And I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, I was a big boy. Yeah, a teenager, yes, but I was big enough to have been able to discern for myself. And in those days, the country had no money. So we had to rely on the good self of our friends and neighbors to give us supplies. And we ate. Mr. Will, are you born yet? Mr. Speaker, what they call ration? Corned beef hash. My friend. When you ate the corned beef, we call him Dr. Macalinden. When you ate the corned beef hash, when you went the next day to pass your stool, you can watch your stool. And then you had butter oil, yes. Butter oil putting on bread, and you had a constant look bowing thereafter, Mr. Speaker. That is what we experienced in this country before Labour Party, Roosevelt carried. And then my mother had to beat me, may her soul rest in peace, to eat the turkey wings. Because in my mind, it was impossible for turkey wings to have been so big. So we believed in those days, Cassandra was not born yet as a mother. We believed in those days that the turkey wing was a human arm. Am I lying? Yes. We had no choice in this thing. You understand? That is what we went for. Or the kind of people want to know. That is what we went for. We have to speak the truth to our young people to see how we have evolved as a people. And if you ate the turkey wings, half of it, 5 minutes after you fell asleep, also, you don't have, your stomach was so heavy. That's what we saw. And then you have to go to the next, to the community centers with a basin. You remember that? And they put a kind of funny thing looking like cornmeal in that for yes. And clean. The clean make you pass. Whatever you call it, the human man, you're like crazy. You swear so when you pass your human man, your excreta, it was juice. Mr. Speaker, that is what we went through. But we survived. We survived that. Now, fast forward that now. We are able, during Hurricane Maria, immediately thereafter, we had, because of the leadership of his Labour Party and the Prime Minister, in excess of $400 million in reserve. We are able to buy food for our people immediately thereafter. That is what the Labour Party is all about. And you come here and they say nothing happened in this country. Nothing happened in this country. This, what the Prime Minister wasting time, like we forgot where we coming from, Mr. Speaker. And that is why when the heavy rains devastated the Southeast, the member of parliament, she's not there, Chicha Bonnie, come and say, blacks, boy, that was fast. Food, because of the leadership of the Labour Party, because we put the people of this country first, Mr. Speaker. That's what happened there. So I want to put that into context. That's why I wanted to stand there and make that intervention. So $1 million plus through the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs, with the leadership of the Prime Minister, was immediately thereafter made available to bring relief to our people in La Plaine, in Grand Fond, in Cassibus, in Petit Souffre, Good Up, Saint-Sauveur. And that shall mopo, and that shall continue if it happens again, Mr. Speaker, because Labour is in power, is in office, Mr. Speaker. And it speaks, Mr. Speaker, how our emergency response infrastructure has grown and evolved over the years, Mr. Speaker, because of what we have been able to do as a government. I have the code. Let me relax. So, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I want now, with your permission, to tie that to our overall emergency response infrastructure. When we got struck by Erica, we embarked on a mission of Build Back Better. Then we got struck by Maria, the worst in the history of man. Yeah. The Prime Minister, with a wet pair of shoes, went to the United Nations and said Dominica shall become the first country. Look at what we're doing. Look at what we're doing. Who is the key to that? Is to decentralize our emergency response mechanism. Then we said years ago we were going to have built containers, specialized containers in the southeast and in the northern part of the country to store supplies. Look at what we have done. Through the instrumentality of US SOFCON, we have been able to build 2 regional operational centers / storeroom in Cotton Hill and in Cassibus, Mr. Speaker. So which means, therefore, on top of the regional hurricane shelters / resource centers, we have complemented that to decentralize our ability to store critical emergency supplies for the people of Dominica. That is what the Labour Party is all about. So not only are Mr. Speaker talking about making money available, but ensuring that we have the structures and infrastructure to respond to any disaster if we were to get struck by that. Mr. Speaker, $3 million plus was provided to give support to a merchant with a passport and the issuing of vital life certificates, namely birth certificate, death certificate, etc., to ensure that we have departed from the era of somebody with a nice handwriting was writing that Vince was born in 19, whatever, a black man, whatever. Easily duplicated. So what we have done over the years is to ensure that those vital life certificates are issued on secured paper. And that is what this is thinking about. You heard much have been spoken about the need for us to have a more robust passport that of course meets international requirements and is more difficult to duplicate. So we have moved, Mr. Speaker, from the merchant with a passport to the e-passport. And we have provided, through this intervention in this measure before this Honorable House, payments to Canadian banknotes for further support of the system that issues the merchant with a passports, Mr. Speaker. So we are already on the way to taking this country to a different level, a new level which will involve all and sundry, Palm first, and to allow them a chance to realize progress in life. But Mr. Speaker, as I approach the climax of my presentation, climax, I like that word, climax. Mr. Speaker, I heard the Minister for Education spoke, and I'm referring again to the fiscal resilience of this country. The Dominica Grammar School, a country is defined, Mr. Speaker, by historical landmarks and names. And the Dominica Grammar School is one of the oldest public schools in this country. 1893, operated then on the corner of Marlborough Street, and what they call Granbury Street at the time, in a building rented at the time, owned by Mr. May soul rest in peace, Piper Lloyd. And then in 1944, he moved on to his current location. Produced scores of brilliant minds in sports, in education, in politics. And Mr. Speaker, before Labour Party came into office, before the advent of Roosevelt Skerrit as Prime Minister, that building was falling apart. You can recall that? That building was falling apart. It's a fact. Falling apart. I can tell you, because before we moved to the State College, we taught, those of us who taught at the college at the time, taught at the technical wing, that's what the college started. So I can tell you about it. So, Mr. Speaker, recognizing the importance of the Dominica Grammar School, under the 4-pillar project, when we moved from Taiwan to the People's Republic of China, and those who are like-minded were flying the Taiwanese flag, you can recall that? One of the 4-pillar projects, if you can recall, Mr. Speaker, you were saying no to it. You're saying we don't want Taiwan, but that was then, but you have evolved, Mr. Speaker. And the Dominica Grammar School was one of the 4-pillar projects. That was the only time when significant work was done to modernize the building. Then they said, Mr. Speaker, and I'm making reference to the $22 million in the supplementary estimate to go, and I do not like, Mr. Minister for Finance, I do not like what they call renovation of the Dominica Grammar School. It is the reconstruction of the Dominica Grammar School, not renovation. It's impossible. It's impossible to be spending close to $30 million to build what I see, and my eyes are big. And the last time I did my eye exam, they say I have 20/20 vision in both eyes. Right? What I'm seeing over there, Mr. Speaker, is not no renovation. It is the reconstruction of a modern, contemporary secondary school, second to none in the world, being constructed under the leadership of Ruth Westcott and the Dominican Labour Party. And that will transform the educational system in this country. Transform. And to ensure that our young men and women, understand, can be part of the national cake. Think of the eventuality when that thing finishes there, Mr. Speaker. Has been said, ultra modern. Go l'école, garçon. Parti l'école was on scared café pour nous, Dominic, no? Go l'école.
Yeah, you have to translate.
Come on, Mr. Speaker, come on, translate, Vinny.
Yes,
I say,
you have to translate.
what?
The rules
What
say
do
you
they say?
must we have not past Creole language to be used in the house.
Say, but you're not joking me, no, in Dominican.
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Speaker.
translate.
So yes, so,
Honorable
and I was-
Rockmore, Honorable Rockmore, you have to translate is the rules.
what I said again, I forgot.
You said go l'école.
Big school.
Nice.
Yes, you like what big, not you, big school. Big school, yeah. Big school, yeah. Yes, and I'm saying that, Mr. Speaker, and to tie it to the education revolution initiated by this Labour Party administration. You, Mr. Speaker, from what I have understood and studied, Vince, all of us, most of us, came from humble beginnings. The reality, Mr. Speaker, with time, 7 people in 1 hour sleeping on the floor. For them. That was reality. And that's a fact. Now, what happened then, Mr. Speaker, if you had no backer, then, to have gone to the bank to sign a student loan for you, irrespective of to how bright you were, you could have never entered the doors of a university, Mr. Speaker. Never. And there are many people who were born in my time who were very bright, who had to defer their acceptance in universities year after year, and they never found somebody to co-sign the loan for them at the aid bank. And up to today, they have not been able to go to university to write their dreams. Labour Party changed that. Changed that. And many people saying they wish that Roosevelt Scared was in office when they were of the ages to go to university, because they would have attained a degree, Mr. Speaker. And as a consequence, scores, I can tell you when I was a parent, and it took over by Cassini, on average, Vince used to run for me when I was Minister for Education. I've got 80 students from my went to university. And it's so around the country, an average of $28,000 US a year. That is what Labour Party has done for the people of this country, Mr. Speaker. So that's why we are building the foundation in elementary school, primary school, and secondary school to build the capacity so you can graduate yourself through the educational ladder, Mr. Speaker. That is what it's about. So, you and I were fortunate at the time to have gotten people to sign loan for us to go to university. And we came back to our country, to save our country, paying $1,600. I paid $1,608. I can never forget, $1,608 for 10 years. We could not have built a house then, but we love our country. We came back. The Labour Party has changed that, Mr. Speaker. And then parents now do not have the burden of having second mortgages on the homes to have sent their children to school because of the Dominican Labour Party, Mr. Speaker. So the Dominican Grammar School have to be tied to the overall effort of the Dominican Labour Party in the education of our children and the education revolution that we're talking about. I wanted to say that, Mr. Speaker, because when we were convinced then, Vince and myself, he convinced me and the Prime Minister to take part in politics, and I'm still in Dominica. And then, at the time, the great President Douglas, may soon rest in peace, spoke about a great renaissance. You can recall that, Vince? A great renaissance. You know what that means? All inclusive, bringing everybody on board to take them to the promise of prosperity. But he never had a chance to build the socio-economic foundation. He passed on. Pharaoh came, he stabilized. But you know who has built the socio-economic foundation for the takeoff of this country? Roosevelt carried and the Dominica Labour Party. Now they're now living in a dream world, fooling themselves, living in a world, and there you have, quite rightly so, take us from that, of their own reality. Yeah, of their own reality and methodology, Mr. Speaker. A false hope, a false reality, a different reality, an alternate reality that is not consistent with the reality that we all know of. Do you understand what I'm talking about? And as a result, Mr. Speaker, when you look at that as I wind up, or wind down, what you want to call it, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Dr. Henderson gave a lecture on geothermal. And as we move into the new year, Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the challenges globally and what we experience, notwithstanding those who are trying to pull this country apart, Mr. Speaker, we are trying our best with the support of those who care about this country to perfect this Dominican civilization. And we are doing that by those kind of intervention, Mr. Speaker. A new grammar school, a new airport, an ancient dream that we had before, all of us, people who were born before us. And it's only now that the Dominican Labour Party is constructing an international airport at no cost to the taxpayers, Mr. Speaker. What greater demonstration of fiscal resilience that you can speak of in this country that happens nowhere in the Caribbean? That is what we have there before you. Geothermal is a game changer that will give rise, Mr. Speaker, to a new Dominica and will bring down the cost of energy. It took Costa Rica how many years to have started that process? We did the hard work, we did the study, we did the exploration, we did the test wells, we have done the production well. And then you heard from Dr. Henderson, we shall build, and we are building, Mr. Speaker, the power plant to move the resource from Dr. Mark's location to the different localities in this country and take this country to the next level, Mr. President. That's what the Labour Party is all about, Mr. Speaker.
7 more minutes.
That's cool, I don't need more. Pas venir dire moi, ah, il n'y a pas qu'à faire à Dominique. Don't come and tell me nothing's happening in Dominica. Things are happening. Those who are not seeing what's happening is because they have their own mindset. But I want, Mr. Speaker, I'm getting there. Okay? Hate and anger and misinformation can cause you to win the election. But it cannot cause you to solve the problems of Dominica and the world. What it will cause you is to destroy this country. And none of us want this country to be destroyed. And that's what I'm saying. That they say we have been there for a long time. They have said that the Prime Minister is in office for. Yes, of course he's there for a long time. But what would you prefer? Someone who has been there for a long time, tackling the big things that all past administration could not have done? Or people who have no idea, who have no plans as to how this whole out around the country. And the only plans they have is to misinform, spread hate, spread human manure all over this country, Mr. Speaker. Human manure, Mr. Speaker. That cannot help you to build a country. And then, when you look at the reality of it all, Mr. Speaker, it is not only about, it's not even about making a binary decision. You are not being asked to make a choice between two things. Because what is coming from the other side is nothing but human manure. I've been told human manure is a better manure than donkey manure, Mr. Speaker, and good. But that's why when I say a big cane, I'm eating it because it's that come from some kind of manure. So, Mr. Speaker, that's the reality, Mr. Speaker. So, we, Mr. Speaker, finally in our development, with the true leadership that we have been speaking about for the longest while in our country, the renaissance that Roosevelt spoke about. He spoke about the jet airport. He brought Vince and myself one with a wind judger to test. But we went through things in that country to go and test for wind speed with a wind judger on the one of flat to build an industrial airport. Look at where we have come from. We have come from that to now building an industrial airport with our own money from Germany. When I was short, when I saw the window jet, I was so big. I used to fly window jet. I never saw a big window jet in my life. I said, I tell Vince, that is madness. I never went back. And that's how we are. So, Mr. Speaker, I support in its entirety the supplementary estimate, Mr. Speaker. This government is on the move. This Labour Party administration leadership is on the move. And we are determined to perfect this Dominican civilization. And we are determined to fight with those, Mr. Speaker, who want to destroy this country. Not literally. Fight by making ourselves available in service to this country, in defense of this country, Mr. Speaker, and to push this country forward, not for ourselves, Mr. Speaker, but for our children and our children, Mr. Speaker, to follow. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Judge, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's not easy to follow such a energetic presentation, but I learned quite a bit, especially human manual. I think there's another word for human manual. I don't know what's the other word, but I get the point. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make a very brief intervention on the supplementary estimates as presented in this honorable House. Estimates in the sum of $349,702.60. But first, Mr. Speaker, if you permit me, I just want to put on record my sincere commendations to the sportsmen and women of Dominica. I believe they continue to do very well in Dominica, and of course, they continue to dominate both on the regional and international levels. And I say this because we are a small island state, very small population, limited resources, and even through these challenges, our athletes are able to compete at high levels, and I think they must be commended for their efforts, Mr. Speaker. Specifically, Mr. Speaker, I want to give a special mention to my very good friend, Derwin Lewis, from a place we call Carib in Penville, who is currently in St. Vincent representing Penville and Dominica in the under-15 cricket competition. I just want to take this opportunity to wish him well and to, of course, wish the entire team all the very best. Also, Mr. Speaker, as I'm on my feet, I want to take some time to commend Mr. File Lander and Ms. Wendy Wallace, who represented Dominica at the recently held ECCU Youth Parliament. And from all reports, Mr. Speaker, they did an excellent job in representing us and representing the views of the young people across Dominica. And for that, I want to put on record my sincere appreciation for the contributions, Mr. Speaker. As it relates to the subject matter, Mr. Speaker, supplementary estimates, after looking through this document, it appeared that every dollar out of the total amount was well justified and was money well spent in many critical areas. And just to clarify, any doubt the listening public may have, because we know that the opposition tend to give the impression that supplementary spending is unlawful. And we know and we are convinced that this is not the case. A matter of fact, the Constitution of Dominica makes provision for this sort of spending and of course allows us the subsequent, of seeking the subsequent parliamentary approval. So we all know that Dominica is prone to external shocks. A matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, I believe that we in Dominica and the Caribbean by extension, and in particular the Eastern Caribbean, we are at the mercies of climate change. The reality is that we face an increased number of natural shocks, and of course the frequency and intensity of these events is getting worse. And of course the provision set out in our Constitution for unforeseen expenses was rooted in wisdom to allow that to happen. So if you permit me, Mr. Speaker, I'll just highlight a few of these expenditures, which I think is very important and of course well justified. Mr. Speaker, we see an amount of 1.06 million of local funds spent on the provision of goods and services for our friends in the East who were affected by the church system. And of course, under the Ministry of Youth, a further $403,000 was expended to victims of the November 2022 church system in the East. And of course, this government, Mr. Speaker, has become well known for looking after the vulnerable people among us, especially in tough times. This was the case following Tropical Storm Erica in 2015, where we had to relocate an entire community, Mr. Speaker, and of course, with the corresponding infrastructure and amenities. And of course, this was also done in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria, where we focused on building back better. We built hundreds of homes across Dominica for our citizens, and we are still delivering homes. As of yesterday, Mr. Speaker, where we handed over keys to 73 families, Mr. Speaker. And of course, these homes, these people who receive these homes may not have been able to build a home on their own. You know, I'm really thankful for the government's policy on housing to ensure that these people can have comfortable homes. So this Labour government knows what it is to look after our people when disaster strikes unexpectedly. And this is really the essence of the supplementary estimates, Mr. Speaker. Not only has this government been providing support in hard times, but we have also been able to put systems in place to respond. The formulation of CREED is one such example, and of course, the Climate Resilience Recovery Plan, the Vulnerable Risk Reduction Plan, fiscal rules, and other safeguards, Mr. Speaker. So I'm really, really happy for this. I'm in full support of this expenditure. Mr. Speaker, the largest infrastructural project in our history is on the way, and it is by no surprise that this is being undertaken by this Labour government. We see an amount of $119.4 million being spent in that regard, Mr. Speaker. And this morning I listened to the member for Marigot, you know, in his attempt, trying to say that, yes, the airport is very important. We should put other projects on the back burner. We should seize geothermal and push our airport, and that he's in favor of the airport. Well, Mr. Speaker, what I suspect the member was really trying to say, I maybe don't want to say it here, but what I suspect he was trying to say, Mr. Speaker, is basically, thank God, Labour is building our international airport, Mr. Speaker. That's what the member was trying to say this morning, Mr. Speaker. But we all agree, Mr. Speaker, for this. And of course, we also see, Mr. Speaker, under the Ministry of Finance, 18.6 million spent for payment to due diligence agencies for carrying out investigations on potential investors under the CBI program. This is very important, Mr. Speaker, because our CBI program continues to serve us well in Dominica. And of course, as time goes by, we will always find ways to improve our program. And of course, this is what we are doing currently, Mr. Speaker. I think that a lot of the success we have achieved for CBI is because of our leadership, the leadership in Honorable Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit. Because the fact is there are CBI programs in many other countries. Many other jurisdictions, offer CBI programs. And none can compare and contrast to what is offered in Dominica. And I believe what sets us apart from the other countries is our leadership and our ability to be progressive in ensuring our program is successful. And from a fiscal standpoint, it's important to note that Dominica do not default on its debt commitments. And even when we contract debt, we ensure that we use this debt to fuel our productive sectors, Mr. Speaker. And this is really what you want to see as a small economy. So the CBI program has touched every single Dominican in one way or the other, and it's important to note that the CBI program is a form of non-tax revenue for this government. And we all know that the government raises funds mainly through taxes, imposing taxes on its citizens. And of course, if there's a program, a non-tax means of earning or generating revenue, I think it's very important that we pursue that method of earning revenue. So it's important that we in this country and of course across the region support our CBI program. The evidence is right there as to what the CBI program has been able to do for us. And of course, this expenditure in the supplementary estimates is very important to protect the integrity of our program because it's important that we ensure that our potential investors meet a certain threshold. And this is why we have agencies to go out there and do their research and the background checks on these potential investors to ensure that they are fit for purpose and they meet this particular threshold, Mr. Speaker. So it's a very important step in the whole process, Mr. Speaker, and of course, I support this expenditure in full amount. Mr. Speaker, in terms of agriculture, our farmers work really, really hard to ensure that we have food to eat. I can attest to this personally, being from one of the hardest working communities when it comes to farming. I believe that we are truly the breadbasket of not just the North, but Dominica, in Penville. And we see in these supplementary estimates 5.1 million dollars being spent to procure agricultural tools and equipment, Mr. Speaker. And of course, our Minister of Agriculture articulated this very, very well. And I'm aware of many farmers in my community that have benefited from this. And of course, when you benefit from these sort of programs, you save some funds and you can then use these funds to do something else or to upgrade some other component of your farming enterprise, Mr. Speaker. And I believe that is really the real benefit of this program. And of course, it's something I will support every time. And of course, Mr. Speaker, in terms of housing, there is another critical expenditure for housing, the second largest expenditure in the supplementary estimates of $65.4 million spent on modern resilient housing developments. And this is primarily because housing is a basic need, and of course we all strive to own a proper housing unit at some point in our life. And secondly, of course, this government strongly believes that every single Dominican should be afforded an opportunity to own a dwelling house. And of course, we are making good strides in terms of achieving this goal. And the reality is, Mr. Speaker, in our attempt to own a proper home, especially at a very young age, we all know of the limiting factors. And one of those factors is the exorbitant costs in terms of building or purchasing a home. And it's not everyone that is able to approach the financial institution. We have the issue of collateral. You may not have any land. You may not be able to acquire the required deposit to access loans. And of course, this is why this program is so important, especially for the young people across Dominica who dreams of having a comfortable dwelling house, Mr. Speaker. So we are basically putting our money where our mouth is, Mr. Speaker. And of course, just yesterday we saw our efforts continued in terms of handing over of 73 houses to deserving vulnerable families. Mr. Speaker, a lot has been said about the NEP program. And of course, to be remiss of me not to say just a few words on this program, me being a past beneficiary of this program, Mr. Speaker. And in my view, this is one of the most important programs or initiatives from this government. And of course, we have some wonderful people engaged under the NEP program. I've been hearing members of this honorable house saying that the NEP is made up of the best crews and stuff like that. My question to them is, show me the evidence of that. And I believe if you take a drive to Penville, Vickers, Thibault, you will see for yourself the fruits of the NEP program, Mr. Speaker. And we have the full confidence in our program, Mr. Speaker. And of course, our interns continue to do their best to ensure that Dominica remains clean and green. No, 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 you're not in that. You don't qualify for that. So, Mr. Speaker, and of course, as mentioned by the minister earlier, many times we believe that NEP refers to only the beautification component. There are, of course, a number of interns across the public service. I'm aware of that. And of course, the private sector, where there's a 50-50 relationship between government and the private entities. And all of these interns make a valuable contribution to our growth and development. So, we should not look down or speak down on the NEP. I believe, it's a really, really good program for young people. And I believe that if it wasn't for the NEP, we would have a serious problem in Dominica in terms of employment, because the reality we have is that the government is not in a position to absorb every single person that's leaving school. It's just impossible, especially in a small island like Dominica. And that is why the NEP and programs similar to the NEP is so very important, Mr. Speaker. So as time goes by, Mr. Speaker, we will do some upgrades to the program. Most recently, we have elevated them to similar treatment as other public officers, so they get paid at the same time other public officers get paid through their financial institution. And of course, we know that there are some issues, small issues that can be rectified, which the NEP office and the ministry is working on to rectify. So any amount spent on NEP, Mr. Speaker, is good spending in my mind, and we should always ensure that our NEP program survives. Mr. Speaker, we also see great progress being made on the geothermal project. I don't intend to speak in any great detail on the geothermal project. We heard from the expert himself. We saw $12.8 million spent to advance the efforts of geothermal. And of course, Honorable Henderson has been championing this, and he has articulated this in great detail. But just to say that our geothermal project will allow us to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and thereby minimizing the effects of external shocks on our economy. And that in itself warrants our huge investments in ensuring that geothermal energy is a reality. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that all the expenditures presented in the supplementary estimates, is very important in terms of enhancing our security, in terms of keeping our persons safe, ensuring that their livelihoods are maintained, and of course, advancing some key development projects like the airport and geothermal and so on. So I have no problem in placing my full support for the supplementary estimates as presented by our Minister of Finance. And of course, I take the opportunity to wish every Dominican a wonderful Christmas and a prosperous 2024. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I
Yes, Honorable Wenham, you can proceed.
thank you. Mr. Speaker, I wish I wish to give support to the supplementary appropriation for 2022-2023. Um, the Portsmouth constituency, Mr. Speaker, is a beneficiary, and also to encourage the use of the funds spent. As I deliberate, Mr. Speaker, you will understand why my intro is such. Mr. Speaker, agriculture. We all know that we need food to survive. The agricultural sector has received 5.1 million, Mr. Speaker. 86 farmers, I am certain, from the Portsmouth constituency are beneficiaries. And I dare say in the north, we have over 100 farmers, 103, 104 thereabout. The Honorable Member Roy can clarify. When the farmers receive assistance for tools, Mr. Speaker, and for materials to build boats. We're simply saying that this means that the farmers and fisher folk, they plant, they catch, and of course those yields, once you have your ready equipment, are going to be much improved. That also means improved livelihoods, not just for the individual going at sea, but for their families, Mr. Speaker, and for our communities as well. It also means improved health, Mr. Speaker. We have to grow, we have to grow and eat healthy, and that is what Dominica farming offers. Our fish, if we eat more fish, Mr. Speaker, automatically you improve your health. I can attest to that, that's what I have, no meat. So, Mr. Speaker, it ensures our food security, and it means that we will have food to eat. So we say thanks to agriculture. Mr. Speaker, in reference to housing, and the thing is we have to understand, and I think Honorable Blackmore tried to do that, our past, what we came from, what we have existing, and what the intention is. Oftentimes we fail to look at what will be the spiral effect of those things. We speak to resilience housing, and usually we reference the structure. But Mr. Speaker, resilience also means improvement in the psychosocial functioning of the individual. It means our well-being, our peace of mind. We heard yesterday at the handing over ceremony of 73 homes where a lady mentioned collecting teens and so to collect water. Mr. Speaker, tap tap on your galvanized roof is vibes. You like that. You can go to sleep better. But that tack tack in the tin bucket is a different kind of pressure for the mind. And as long as you can eliminate those things for someone, it is so much better to fall asleep and to take care of your family. It also ensures that our socioeconomies also thrive, as the people know that they can go out now, make money, come back home, and that money takes care of so many things, Mr. Speaker. Some people have to pay rent, they no longer have to do that, and that money can be used for increased savings, Mr. Speaker, education for the children, and even entertainment. It also fosters, Mr. Speaker, the homey feeling, a safe place, a place where we get love. So it's not just a house, you know. It's way more than that. You eat, you drink, you talk, and you enjoy the company of loved ones, friends, and family. And even now, I'm sure those who received their keys yesterday, pretty excited to receive friends and family for the Christmas season. Health, Mr. Speaker, we saw some 418,000 plus go into the roof renovation for the Reginald Fitzgerald Armour Hospital in Portsmouth. Mr. Speaker, one would probably want to, how would I say that, criticize just that, because some of us have the background story of the RFA. But this facility, the space where it exists, Mr. Speaker, holds a long history. Mr. Speaker, I was born there. Surgeries were done there. And yes, we're looking at the renovation of the roof, and for some, they'll say more has to be done, and certainly so. But it's a step in the right direction, Mr. Speaker. And remember in the beginning, I mentioned making use of those funds. Mr. Speaker, you know we have something called self-care. And you do know, I'm sure, that we have something called indigenous knowledge. And a lot of the times, we make ourselves probably worse off than we are. You find you have a little headache, you get some sniffle, very quickly we run to the hospital, forgetting about the indigenous knowledge. We can cure ourselves at home. What it does is it relaxes you as the individual. You don't have to go to the hospital and be frustrated, criticize the nurses. It's just a flu you have. You have the bush medicine there at home. Most of us, we just open our doors and the medication is right there. Use those things and cause yourself to be a healthier person. Take care of yourself. right? So we don't need to run to the hospital for, those minor things. Mr. Speaker, tourism in the Portsmouth constituency, the area which I call my real estate, Mr. Speaker, tourism is a big deal for us. If you were to go up there now, you will see the number of yachts already there, and we're not even at the peak of the season yet. But we also have the northern sites, Mr. Speaker. So any kind of money going into tourism, I know will obviously be in the Portsmouth area, whether it is given to women, men, enterprises, it doesn't matter. But I want to also encourage us to be innovative with some of the things, some of the products, some of the services that we already have. Entertainment. Sometimes we just think entertainment is just going to a bar, get a drink, and that's it. But there's so much more that we can do. We can, something like the Portsmouth Market experience. I don't know how many of you have experienced the Portsmouth Market, but that in itself can be packaged as a tourism product. And so I'm hoping that my constituents, and I dare say the North by extension, that we can be a little bit more innovative, more creative in what we offer the people. The improved services, things like cleaning. We have a number of tourists coming on, not just the yachts, but we have those who stay over, and they look for simple services like that. Also, Mr. Speaker, we have a catchment, the national tourists. Mr. Speaker, we like to say local, but as one of my good friends would say, local is more for products, but our national tourists. When we ask people to come to our various constituencies for tourism, what is it that you're asking a national to come to? What is it that you're offering? So that is what I'm saying. Yes, we put in all of these funds into those resources, but we too, as people, have to be able to stretch, go beyond, put it into use. So a lot of times you hear, how I'd say, criticism coming from the opposition, but even in what you're saying, there's so many ideas. And probably if you just take some time to look a little bit more closely, then you can not just only criticize, but you can give ideas. And when you come into the house, you can share some of what you have invested your time, talent, and treasure in. So those things are very important as we look to improving and making a better Dominica. Mr. Speaker, while I'm on tourism, in the Dodan area of my constituency, I just wanted to say kudos to the community. They came out, and there was an area that we looked at, is the Seuss. And for a lot of us, it's just something where water sprouts out of. But they were able to, after much interaction with the community, see the potential that it had to generate revenue. And so when I speak to Mr. Speaker, it's leading by example. And the people have been able to come out and to develop the area, and more help will be given, and I'm sure, again, through appropriations and also direct funding, that they will benefit from those. Mr. Speaker, the NEP, like speakers have alluded to before, it is an important component in our Dominican framework. And for me in the constituency, I have over 178 people, whether through the public, private, schools or community, that are enrolled in this program. And for the past year, we've had 29 new interns in that program. With all of the things that were already mentioned, Mr. Speaker, we have great skill set within that program. And I remember my colleague, Minister Frederick, saying that, he was so amazed to see the skill sets coming from the individuals from the NEP. And now we can graduate those people. We're also asking the private sector to absorb these people as well into their main payrolls. Mr. Speaker, this takes me to close to the end of my presentation. I wanted to conclude by saying thank you to the constituents, the businesses, the well-wishers of the constituency who continue to give their time, talents, their treasure, and that God may abundantly bless them. And while we're in the season of Advent, I'm Catholic, so that is why I'm saying Advent. I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and especially to the HR units and the entire Ministry of Education and the people, the very special people of my constituency, Toad-and-Bourne, Chans, Zika, Portsmouth Central, Picard, and Glanville, Tibet, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Good morning. Mr. Speaker, I rise to give my full support for the supplementary.
Would you like to move to a different area?
I'm fine, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
I know I'm very well known.
Okay, great. Okay, proceed.
Yes. So again, I say I rise to give my my support, full support for the supplementary estimates presented by the Honorable Minister for Finance. Very well presented. Again, as alluded earlier, we could have closed the debate by such great explanation for every section where expenditures were identified. However, I would like the answer to be kind to me and to the people of the P7 constituency by recording our satisfaction or support for the supplementary estimates for the fiscal year 2022-2023. To begin with the agricultural contribution, which is relevant to my ministry, specifically responsible for agriculture and the economy, and my senior minister who presented earlier the overall picture. So I will not repeat what he said on the overall package, but to delve more a little into, briefly though, into the fisheries section, and an area which is of growing in terms of its contribution to the sector and to the overall agricultural contribution as we delve into our new target by 2030. What I want to say is, Mr. Speaker, under this project, which you explained, and the expenditure here is specifically to the DILCREP, the Emergency Agricultural Livelihood Climate and Climate Resilience Project. This overall project, while here is recognized 5.1 million, this project from inception 2018 was 79 million. And to date, the whole portfolio of the DILCREP, or the ILCREP, if you put down it before it, so it is recognized sometimes, is now $110 million, a significant increase. And this significant increase are for a number of reasons. There have been what we call the CIRCs, the Contingency Emergency Response Components, and several of them since the original fund in 2018. We had one for COVID, and we now have a new one for food security. I mention this because the relevant in the context is that it shows a demonstration from the funding institution, the World Bank, confidence in the implementation and the respect for the project implementation unit in Dominica and the overall management by government. Because even if some people, you see that it is written emergency response, you do not just get this response automatically. You have to present all of your necessaries as if you were applying for a new project to qualify. So in this current one, it caters to tools and equipment, which includes fisheries. But following perhaps in the next presentation or the next supplementary appropriation, you will see another CIRC, and which we will speak about in that time, but I will leave that part for when it comes up. And this is new expenditures that usually are not budgeted for. They may come along after the budget is passed. So let us just delve on this one. Specifically, my colleague said I will deal with the marine matters, and in this component, we are constructing over 50 new resilient fishing boats. For those of us who are familiar with our fishing sector, yes, we do have a dayboat operation which goes out daily, but what we will be manufacturing from the World Bank project is an enhanced and improved type of fishing boat that will increase not just the resilience, but the safety of our fishers when they ply the rough waters. And I say rough waters because a lot of these boats are not meant to just dwell within your first 5 miles of people doing hand lining. These are boats that will go out and catch the more of the larger pelagics that we are used to, the marlin, your tuna, so that we can improve our export, we can improve our current production from 100,000 tons to perhaps 150 within the next 5 years. So not only that we have enough for our own food security situation, but adequate for export, for increased export earnings. And why have this taken so long since 2018? We have invested a lot of time into the development of this boat, and then we have, through consultancy under this project, consulted with a naval architect to work with 5 of our best boat builders in Dominica. And these are exceptional, very skillful people. So notwithstanding that we have brought in an international expert to work with them, to help them, Mr. Speaker, but these experts have recognized that they had already had the raw talent and skill, but was to harness the other components that they were lacking on, such as, being able to develop their own plans for their boat and so on. They could build the boat, but they need to present the boat with a plan, and they need to add additional components and structure to these boats to make them more resilient. So a tremendous amount of financing has gone into that component, and beginning in 2024, we will start to see the manufacture of these 54 boats or more by these 5 key boat builders that were trained for almost a period of 1 year. And I want to say very thank you for their cooperation to the project, to work with us and to have been patient. And now it is time to roll out. And it is now time in this new year for them to get their own contracts now to build these boats and get some returns. And because a lot of time people think when you contract this financing from the institution, it is to pay people from abroad. But we're going to have 5 individuals or 6 plus their workers and auxiliary services and connecting services that is going to benefit from these very heavy contracts these local individuals are going to get to manufacture these boats. So that is what the fisheries component in this current one covers. But I just want to say, again, as being part of the ministry, and you heard the Honorable said that in the agriculture ministry, this new dispensation, the reset, which was what was called for, is that nothing is done along political lines. And you have seen the tremendous emphasis we have placed on key areas that are known as the breadbasket. And it does not translate into political lines. We do what we have to do, where we have to do it, where the numbers count, where the evidence is true. And then you have seen a tremendous investment into the Salisbury constituency, where what is known to be a heavy agriculture area. And I am very happy that, those on the other side have been fair enough to say what it is and to thank the Honorable Minister and the ministry for their contribution. I know some of our colleagues are eager to get that same level of treatment, Honorable Henderson in the Morpeth Road and MacArthur Road, but everywhere will be addressed. It is a process, it is a long-term plan, it is a development plan. We're looking at 2030, we're looking at more than this term. It is beyond this term. We understand a political cycle is 5 years, but our vision here, Honorable Roy, is we're looking at a beyond 5-year plan. So it will take time to do things properly. Mr. Speaker, from a social background, and I have spent a lot of time, even I am known as a very nice guy. Everybody knows that. And in my community, everywhere, very generous, long before politics. So I take social welfare very much. And even more so in getting to be friends with Dr. Williams, she can rub that off on you very, very, very well. So that care for people. Right. And so the expenditure we see here in the additional expenditure, and that has to do a lot with the vision of this government and the Honorable Prime Minister of reducing the age from 70 to 65. 5 years is a long time. Those of us in politics who take that pressure will know that that's a lot of blows to take for 5 years. So somebody waiting at 65 to get a little 300 at 70, it seems like forever. And then we recognize there were a number of people facing challenges during that time. So hence the reason why we had to drop it to 65. So that this additional revenue here, from 70 to 65. So this additional revenue was to cover these people. And so that is money well spent. And I care about these people. a lot. So I will always support this kind of contributions. I will not continue much further on this. The National Employment Program. Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask, especially over there, Attorney General, if a law can be passed to ban the use of the acronym and to use the whole word, National Employment Program, because on both sides, I have a problem with the wrong context in which the word is used. The NEP working over there. What is that? How can an employment program be working somewhere? This person is an NEP. Well, why? I don't understand it. It hurts me. Nomenclature means a lot. And how you are referred to will bring about how you react and how you work. And is what? Ban AG, is this possible? Ban the use of this nomenclature. If somebody is a sanitary engineer, say what they are. If they are landscaping engineer, say what they are. If they are caregiver, they are caregiver, and let's refer to their team. The program is an employment program, not the person. The person is not an NEP. So, no, this is not a joke. I'm making a joke out. Yeah, because it does not bring the sense of pride and equate the type of work and respect that these people do, because it doesn't have people just call them. You can send the NEP over there then and clean the place, you know? And yeah, so I am passionate about that, because in my community, just cleanup and beautification, over 120 something people, 130 people. That's $120,000 in the constituency. Easily every month. And we have not spoke about those who are in government, those who are on the 50-50, and so on. So tremendous amount of revenue coming into the constituency. Yes, we can say in life, nowhere is perfect. 1,000, you can say they deserve 2,000. And that's why I would clap for Mr. Paris if he was here, and to get a level of appreciation from him, because he knows what it is for these people monthly who can now pay their bills, who can now do basic things. In my constituency, we have a lot of that. And I will tell you, everybody knows, and the Honorable that is responsible for the NEP knows. And I heard Honorable Oscar George talking about the crew in vehicles and so on, but I mean, he's a colleague, so I will not fight him on the floor in Parliament. But everybody knows, first crew that is called, first army that is called down to Roseau, when the stadium needs to call, is our crew in the south. And includes Dr. Henderson too. But my crew, specifically the Pittsburgh constituency, right there in Roseau, we had to clear the grounds for the breaking of the school in Goodwill. All the way from up there, we have to come up and make sure that job was done. In the stadium, first crew, under the Kenfield Clippers, you can imagine, and we do it with pride. That's right. They do it with pride. I have never heard anyone complain from my constituency that the payment is late, because they know the payment will be there. The payment must come. So they are very grateful. They don't complain. Even when the only crew that was there cleaning for the stadium, they were there. You don't hear anything. And so I want to, and this is a message that they have asked me to bring back, and you can see it. Right. I had a social event for the entire cleanup and beautification crew and caregivers. We had a bash last week. I mean, everybody wanted to be there. Free drink, free food, they deserve that. And I didn't want any of them to volunteer to prepare anything. All I wanted them to do was dress, come, and go back whenever they wanted to go back. Bosses parked there. If one person wants to go at their home, I make any boss come back to one person at their home. And that is the treatment and appreciation I want to display that you have for this country. Okay? And so, AG, think about it and let me know if that is legally possible. You cannot not speak about geothermal as it is in the supplementary. And a question was asked of Honorable Henderson, and he has said at the appropriate time that we will hear. So I do not think it is wise of me to take the wind of his sails, because he has worked so hard on this. So if the best news, the person to bring out the best news, I believe, should be him. And I wouldn't even say light of the tunnel. I mean, there is more than light at the end of that tunnel. I think that tunnel, if you just walk a little too close, you'll fall below. Yeah, so that is how we are out of this tunnel. And I'm happy to be part of Parliament and part of our cabinet, part of our government that have reached that milestone, because I have seen the progression of it. But it was a long journey, hundreds of millions from the state, personally, without having to take extensive loan. I mean, yes, you have some loan, which is unavoidable, but the state itself have done tremendous work. So you cannot outrule geothermal. And geothermal is not about just, people talking about the environment and so on. I mean, people always look for an excuse when they know you have reached near. When they know you have almost accomplished, they want to find something else to derail it. We all know what a reduction of tariff will be. That alone in itself, if I am paying now 40% less of my current electricity bill for me, I don't even want to hear about anything else. I don't want to know if government make $1 in it. That is not my problem. I am a consumer, and I speak here as a consumer. 40% less of $100 is $60. This is fine enough with me, and I am sure every business that relies on heavy use of electricity will be very thankful. So if it is that, we have to get much more than that in 25 years, as is talked about. But again, I will leave that for Dr. Henderson at the appropriate time to bring to the nation as to what is going to happen with geothermal. I just want to reiterate that I have my full support for any expenditure. We have gone so far, and we have to get this mission accomplished. The East Trough, you see there is a budget allocation again, a grant from the World Food Program. I cannot not mention this as being part of a constituency that have been severely affected by climatic events. It wasn't even a hurricane, tropical storm Erica in 2015, where the entire P7 constituency was relocated, and they've gone through several years of facing what these people in the East have faced. So it is, for me, my comment on this is more of a matter of solidarity with the people who are affected in Saint-Sauveur, in Petit-Soufrière, Castle Bruce, and Good Hope, and so on. These are areas I knew very well back when I was in my previous profession, so I know what these people are, and I can sympathize with them, just coming from a constituency where an entire community was faced with the exact same thing. So I appreciate any measure that is taken to relieve these people of any sort of burden that they have. The icing on the cake, Mr. Speaker, the goose that lays the golden hen, which is our currently the Citizenship by Investment program. And that is what it is. The goose that lays the golden hen. So any measure, the golden egg, Mr. Speaker, I correct myself. Yeah, goose, hen, all of them, they have wings, and they lay. So anything that lays, is fine, yeah. So it doesn't change the context of the message. They all lay. So if they all lay, they all lay egg. So if all the eggs are golden, it's still fine. Yeah. Well, it's just that one is bigger than the other, but one lay more than the other. So it equates at the end. Due diligence fees, we have seen a significant, Mr. Speaker, increase in the due diligence fees. Some people say over 18 million. But this is what they have asked for, Mr. Speaker. This is what they have asked for. And that's the thing with people on the other side who ask for things. When they get it, they are shocked because they didn't expect it. And that is the problem. We should have electoral reform. When you give them electoral reform now, they are shocked because they didn't expect that we would do it. But what the shock they will get is the speed at which we're going to do it. So they will be even more shocked. So that is an example. Oh no, our passport should be more safe. The way in which the passport, the transaction is done should be more transparent and should have more security. Here it is that we have listened to constructive criticism, Mr. Speaker. Because we do listen to criticism, but they have to be constructive. So every time criticism are constructive, I mean, we are very, I can say, reasonable people. So this is one of them. So they have always been cried to strengthen the due diligence process, to make sure the process in which by the Citizenship Investment Program is transacted. We avoid certain types of people in the world. So then we have listened and made the investment. So I welcome that investment from the relevant ministry and the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance. Yes, it is a sizable sum, but it is minuscule in terms of the expected returns that we will get by having a stronger system. Okay, and so with these few words, Mr. Speaker, I want to say overall, I have my full support. I believe the people of the P7 constituency will agree with me to give that support on their behalf, and I wish to say that thank you to them. They are very wonderful people. I've had a wonderful year so far. Good times and bad times, this is what a marriage is, and accept it wholly. And I continue to another year with them, and I wish all the entire people, constituents of the constituency, a Merry Christmas. But of course, I will spend more quality time with them at appropriate places so that we can, celebrate a bit better, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, Honorable Joseph, you may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I think we had enough of the numbers. So I was tasked with putting all of what was said today into perspective. So, Mr. Speaker, I have jotted down some notes, and if you permit me to refer to my notes occasionally, I would appreciate that.
Permission granted.
Mr. Speaker, today I humbly present and advocate for the Supplementary Appropriation 2022-2023. This very crucial proposal not only reflects our commitment to the agricultural sector, but also encapsulates the broader spectrum of our national development agenda. Mr. Speaker, before I continue, I strongly believe that my survival and achievements thus far has by no doubt been as a result of the tremendous support of my colleague ministers, Minister Roy and Minister Defo, and my colleagues by extension, and without any fear of contradiction, Honorable Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit. That's time for you to clap. Right. Mr. Speaker, over the years, our agricultural sector has witnessed remarkable growth marked by innovative initiatives, technological advancements, and robust policy frameworks. Through concerted efforts, we have enhanced agricultural productivity, ensured food security, and empowered local farmers. The implementation of sustainable agricultural practices has not only preserved our natural resources, but also positioned our nation as a regional leader in agro-industrial development. In the realm of agriculture, our government has been unwavering in its dedication to fostering the growth of community agro-enterprises. Over the past year, we have witnessed substantial progress in this sector, with increased investment in sustainable farming practices, modernization of agricultural techniques, and the facilitation of market access for local producers. These efforts have not only strengthened food security, but have also empowered our local communities to thrive economically through agro-based initiatives. Simultaneously, Mr. Speaker, strides in housing and the National Employment Program has been equally commendable. The provision of affordable and resilient housing and the creation of sustainable employment opportunities have contributed significantly to the overall well-being of our citizens. The National Employment Program has played a pivotal role in reducing unemployment, offering meaningful opportunities for our people. And I would just like to take this opportunity to say thank you to my beautification team and supervisors and every constituent engaged within the National Employment Program. This multifaceted approach not only addresses employment, but the immediate needs that our constituents face on a daily basis. Our commitment to social welfare is evident through the successful implementation of our social safety net programs. These social safety nets provide financial security to the elderly and vulnerable, underscoring our dedication to inclusivity and the well-being of our citizens. Furthermore, national projects such as the construction of our international airport and the harnessing of geothermal energy underline our commitment to sustainable development. These projects, Mr. Speaker, not only contribute to infrastructural advancements, but also open doors to job creation, economic diversity, and increased foreign investment. As we reflect on the progress made over the years, it is evident that our initiatives have translated into tangible benefits for every Dominican citizen. The values of resilience, sustainability, and inclusivity underscore our approach to development. Opportunities for investment abound, offering both domestic and international investors a chance to contribute to our nation's growth story. The benefits of our collective efforts are not confined to specific sectors, but radiate across the nation. Increased agricultural productivity translates to food security and economic growth. Affordable housing ensures a stable society, and national projects create jobs and attract foreign investment. Our focus remains steadfast on improving and expanding these initiatives. We recognize the need for continuous innovation, capacity building, and community engagement. Our commitment to transparent governance ensures that every citizen is part of this journey toward a prosperous and sustainable future. As we celebrate our achievements, we must remain forward-looking. The way forward involves continued investment in technology, research, and education to ensure sustainable development. Strengthening public-private partnerships will be pivotal in unlocking new opportunities and achieving our development goals. The interconnectedness of agriculture, housing, our social safety nets, and national projects is the cornerstone of holistic development. Each component complements the other, creating a synergy that propels our nation towards prosperity. I urge the private sector, both domestic and international, to recognize the vast opportunities embedded in our developmental initiatives. Investments in agriculture, infrastructure, and renewable energy not only promises financial returns, but also contributes to the collective advancements of our society. For the regular citizen, these endeavors mean enhanced quality of life, better employment prospects, and a more secure future. It means improved livelihoods, access to quality education and healthcare, and a brighter future. It means that the aspiration of our youth are not just dreams, but achievable goals within the landscape of our developing nation. To the youth, this is an invitation to actively participate in shaping the destiny of our nation. Embrace the opportunities before you, for you are the architects of tomorrow. In closing, I would like to address the youth directly. You are the heartbeat of our nation's progress. Your ideas, your energy, and aspirations are invaluable. Seize the opportunities provided by these initiatives, be catalysts for change, and actively engage in shaping the future you desire. Your potential is boundless, and your contributions will define the legacy of this country. The challenges we face are also opportunities for innovation and growth. Believe in your potential and let your actions shape the destiny of our great nation. To the people of the Pebush constituency, you have entrusted me with your political mantle, and you have witnessed the dedication, effort, and growth over the past year. And I can assure you that there is a lot more to come. I will continue to lead with optimism, enthusiasm, and most importantly, a clear and concise plan under the astute leadership of the Honorable Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit. Mr. Speaker, and before I conclude my contribution, I have a confession that due to no. Due to the conducive environment that this government is providing for people like me, I believe I will contemplate reproducing in the next couple, let's say about 5 years. I give it myself about 5 years. That's my 5 year plan, my long term, my short term 5 year plan. So, honorable members, if, as we conclude the deliberation on the supplementary appropriation 2022-2023, let us be guided by the conviction that our collective efforts today will pave the way for a brighter, more prosperous future for all. Happy holidays, and may God bless us all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thought the Honorable Palsec would want to confess in church, but you can't confess in Parliament. But proceed, Dr. Honorable Williams, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, as the Minister of State in the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services, it would be remiss of me not to support the supplementary estimates. I will be very brief, as I believe my colleagues have so eloquently deliberated on the estimates. I think these estimates give clear intention and point to many positive.
Could you please speak directly into the mic? Yes, move it forward.
They give clear intention and point to many positive and sure prospects for the Dominican people. Mr. Speaker, the government's social programs continue to receive special attention, even in difficult economic times. And I'm persuaded that no circumstance will thwart the plans of the Labour Party-led government to care for the vulnerable among us. I'm reminded by Scripture that the poor we will always have with us. Thus, I believe there is an obligation on our part to care for them. $2.9 million of the estimates have been spent for the non-contributory social pension assistance, which provides for persons 65 and over. And I should highlight here that the senior citizens from my constituency are beneficiaries, over $500,000. Honorable Blackmore spoke to the quick response to the Southeast people, but also mention must be made of the World Food Program, and gratitude expressed for its continued efforts to provide much needed support to the government of Dominica through cash grants to victims of the November 2022 East Trough system in the amount of over $400,000. A total of 299 households and 660 individuals from the villages of Grand Pont, Montjean, Rivière-Siric, Castle Bruce, Petit Soufrière, Good Hope, and Saint-Sauvé benefited from this intervention. I did say I was going to be brief, but while I'm on my feet, Mr. Speaker, let me take the opportunity to express sincere thanks to the constituents of Casgori, La Plaine, La Ronde, Boetica, and Delis for your patience, understanding, and support during my first year in office. And special mention must be made of my NEP employees, particularly those under the Cleanup and Beautification Project. Best wishes for Merry Christmas as I look forward to positive, transformative undertakings in every aspect of constituency life in the new year. In closing, I voice my support for the supplementary estimates before this Honorable House. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I have been, well, the reality of this is you heard all that has been said, and most people who came prepared to speak have indicated that there is not much that they can say. I don't really wish to speak about what happened in the time of Hurricane David and the types of manure that were in use at that time, Mr. Speaker. But in all seriousness, I just want to record that I have to support the supplementary appropriation as before this House. The figures have been discussed at some length. The senator from Senator Paris raised a number of points which, in of their own, sound interesting. But as we heard, the honourable member for Wesley, Minister Grant, pointed out one error. I'm aware that there are other errors that are observed, and I'm sure the Minister for Finance, who is here, will, in his rebuttal, will highlight some of those. But the reality is, Mr. Speaker, that we know that supplementary appropriations are inevitable. To use the phrase, I think that was used by the member for Margaret, there are always going to be unforeseen expenses and events that occur. And when you have major projects, those occurrences are even more likely, I would suggest. What is clear is that all of the items that are before this House in the supplementary appropriation are clearly set out, and as is always the case, they are expenses that have arisen and that are necessary. And I don't have a constituency per se. My constituency is the whole of this beautiful country of ours. And I noted that the ministry that I am essentially attached to, Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs, that they were that ministry features in the expenditure, and for obvious reasons, although most of that was not to the legal affairs segment, or indeed to the chambers of the Attorney General. But Mr. Speaker, what is clear is that this supplementary appropriation is necessary and appropriate. And I think, although the members of the opposition, some of them expressed some questions, I think it may be fair to say that they are not expressing opposition to the supplementary appropriation, or if they did, it escaped me. So I think they accept that the supplementary appropriation as presented to this House by the Honourable Minister for Finance, and as he will address in closing in his rebuttal, is appropriate and entirely appropriate for my wholehearted support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to conclude on our debate on the supplementary estimates. I just need to clarify a few things regarding the $349,702,600.49. Interestingly enough, both sides of the House have actually agreed and support the supplementary estimates. Point out to Senator Charles that we're not going to put geothermal on the back burner while we do the airport. We're a government with capacity and we can do more than one thing at one time. So there are so many different projects we're doing, so we don't have to put anything on a back burner. We'll do everything simultaneously. This is the capacity that we have in this Labour Party government. We have many projects going on, and I think we'll all agree that money was well spent. All the money that we've spoken about here today was pretty much well spent. And if you were to look at it, this is because this government has put the people of this country first. This is a government that feels the people, we read the people, we're in touch with the people, so we know what affects them the most, and we know how to adjust and to be pragmatic in our approach as we address all their issues. So for instance, I mean, the immediate relief we gave after the trough of last year, that is just a perfect example of money well spent. If you look at the money that was spent in terms of the civil registry and our passport issuing systems, in excess of $3 million, that is excellent. You have to look at how we protect our official documents and how significant this is to us. That is money well spent. Elections, $3 million, in excess of $3 million, obviously, we have to give the people the opportunity to return their government, which was done. So, and they did that overwhelmingly so. And that is so that we can continue being their guardians and taking care of them. And as we've been doing for the past more than 2 decades, if you ask me. Then also the money on the international airport, everybody has spoken about it, and let alone the tourism part. It's all about how it helps agriculture, it's all how it has going to all the different businesses that will be associated with the international airport. It's really a transformative project in our development, and we all look forward to it. So 119 million in excess of this is money well spent. If we were to look at things like the gasoline shortages that we mentioned, in excess of $6 million that we spent, not only spending $6 million in the time of the gasoline shortage, but that money was spent such that if we were to have a similar situation again, we'd be in a better position because we put some mitigating measures into place for this as well. So we have to recognize those things. If we look at from the non-contributory benefit from 70 to 65 years, obviously, and the 5% increase in the pension, all this is how we help people put money in people's pockets, especially our elderly that we're so concerned about. Coming to our CBI program, Mr. Speaker, that is our main program. This is a program we have to protect, despite the fact that it's been trying to be tarnished by members from the opposition previously. But no, that's why we've remained #1 in our CBI program, because of our due diligence. So us spending another 18 million plus in due diligence is just to ensure that our CBI program can continue and we can remain the #1 in terms of our CBI program internationally. Tools and equipment for agriculture, Mr. Speaker, you cannot argue, you cannot debate this one. This is just for the whole productivity sector. If you heard this year's budget, when we spoke of the productive sector and we want agriculture to contribute 700 million to our GDP, that is money well spent again. Education, 22 million on your alma mater, the Dominica Grammar School, which you must be proud of. 22 million, we cannot complain here, Mr. Speaker. Housing, 65 million for housing, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday we saw the happiness and the pride and the joy on 73 homeowners. And interestingly enough, although it was mentioned that jobs for local contractors, actually all of these were local contractors, all 75 homes built. So this sort of just nullifies everything that was said. So all the local contractors are here. I have to be careful when I talk about NEP, because DFO will definitely scold me there. So the National Employment Program and the national and all the employees under this program, yes, that's okay, Honorable DFO. Yes, all the employees under this particular program, they have different categories, and this is money well spent in that program. As a matter of fact, 31 million. So, and I know how it benefits so many people in my community, because I know the amount that goes to my community in excess of $200,000 every month. So you can imagine if we just remove this from the constituencies, what a problem we have. So it's a program that we cannot do without, not from the point of view that they actually provide a very useful service, keeping the country clean. And not only keeping the country clean, but it's just how they can fend for themselves or can they provide for themselves, and the sense of dignity and pride they have when they get this done. So it's not a program we should look down on. And our government has never, ever looked down on the National Employment Program. If anything, we're the ones who've been saying that these people are doing an excellent job, and we've been praising them ever since, and we won't stop praising them either at all. In terms of money spent on the geothermal, Honorable Henderson spoke, I'm not going to touch on this. Layu, our roads in Layu, the 11 million plus that we spent, So, Mr. Speaker, I mean, I can go on and on, but I'll be repetitious. But the point here I'm trying to say is that every single cent that was spent was well spent. If someone were to argue about this money spent, the issue here, Speaker, is if someone cannot understand how this government is a people-centered government, then they might want to object and argue here and there. But that is because the eyes cannot see what the mind doesn't know. So if somebody doesn't understand and they don't know, they will not see those things. And that is the shortcoming for some people here. But, Mr. Speaker, I think both sides have generally agreed. And, there's something I should clarify also, because when person talks about in excess of 400 CFWs, that is not correct. There are 131 advances. And this, I don't know where the 400 came from. And we have to look at what we're doing here, the supplementary estimate. This has absolutely nothing to do with this year's budget. This was money above and beyond what was approved for last year's budget. So we shouldn't get confused and think about 400 plus advances, no environment warrants. This is something that happens within the ministries. Let's assume you have money for salaries, and then you run short, so you can get money from travel, and you put it in your salaries. But the financial officer must get permission from the Ministry of Finance. That is totally different from the CFW. And we only had 31 advances from the CFW, and this has absolutely nothing to do with this year's budget. This is above and beyond of last year's budget. So I think Senator Paris was a little bit confused there when he mentioned that part. But I just wanted to clarify it so that we can understand those different things here. Mr. Speaker, these supplementary estimates, I think, really explains how well the prudent management of the finances of this government. And if anything that the listening public should take from that is they should recognize that we're leading from the front. And this is how we're transparent and accountable in how we spend the people's money. And we would love that the citizens of the country can prioritize like this government and be prudent in their financial management so that we can all do it together. This is what the Honorable Prime Minister spoke about when he spoke about the reset, how we spend, what we spend on, and this government is leading from the front. So it would be lovely if the citizens can follow us, prioritize, and spend within their limits, within their budgets, and on the proper things that can provide development for them. Having said this, Mr. Speaker, I commend this budget to you to the Honorable House so that we can approve it. But before I do this, I would want to tell my beautiful people in Rosa Valley constituency, sometimes you refer to it as the tourism capital, but I'd rather refer to it as the wellness capital. I just want to tell them and wish them a pleasant holiday season. And we have our children's party on Saturday at 3 p.m. And we want all the kids to come out. They're looking forward to this, and I think they're going to come out and we're going to have a very good time on Saturday at 3 p.m. So to all my people in the Rosa Valley, I wish you a pleasant holiday season, and I'll see you on Saturday. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to close up this debate, and so we can move ahead with the people's business. And I thank everyone for their contributions here. I think we had a very fruitful deliberations here today, which went on pretty well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
This concludes the debate on the supplementary estimate. The supplementary estimate shall now be referred to a committee of supply of the whole House. And I have to report that the supplementary estimate have passed through the Committee of Supply without amendments. So the question is that the estimate for $349,702,649 be approved. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Supplementary Appropriation 2022-23 Act 2023 be read a first time.
I beg the second motion, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary Appropriation 2022-2023 Act 2023.
The bill has been read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move the second reading of the bill shortly entitled Supplementary Appropriation 2022-2023 Act 2023.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move to second motion.
Mr. Speaker, I commend the Supplementary Appropriation Bill to the House.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled Supplementary Appropriation 2022-2023 Act 2023 be read a second time. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The bill will not be read a second time.
Supplementary Appropriation 2022-2023 Act 2023.
I move that the bill shortly entitled Supplementary Appropriation 2022-2023 Act 2023 be read a third time and passed.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled Supplementary Appropriation 2022-2023 Act 2023 be read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Supplementary Appropriation 2022-2023 Act 2023.
The bill has been read a third time and passed accordingly.
I beg that the House be suspended until 6:30 p.m.
Second, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the House be suspended until 6:30 p.m. this evening. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House stands suspended until 6:30 p.m.